What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. Today's video, we're going to give you our predictions for every matchup in Week 2 of the NFL. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, Nick, Week 2 is upon us, and right now we have a lot of games to get to, so let's start off with the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills coming off of a heartbreaking loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were in the thick of it all the way until the very end when the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to block a punt and return it for a touchdown. They were able to really make the most of their opportunities, and the Buffalo Bills go 0-1, which is not something that we expected, but it is where we stand. So the Buffalo Bills now looking at the Miami Dolphins, a divisional matchup. The Dolphins are the only team in the division that are 1-0. So the Bills are looking to make a statement here with their new wide receiving core of Emmanuel Sanders is looking to put his stamp on the AFC East. I think he's going to be able to do a lot in this offense, along with Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. They have to carry the load for this offense. On the defensive side of the ball, I need to see the back end step up. Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde, I need to see them really get it going this week because this is a really strong Miami Dolphins team that they're going to be facing.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills are a strong team. They kind of got unlucky there at the end of their game week 1, but the Miami Dolphins didn't get unlucky. They forced some very significant turnovers against the New England Patriots, and it wasn't by mistake. This team has been coached up by Brian Flores. He's been doing a great job, and they have made some significant improvements as well on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to see the first game with Will Fuller in this system. Jalen Waddle last week looked fantastic. Devontae Parker looked as good as ever. I think Tua is going to play lights out with all of these weapons at his disposal. I think big things are to come for Tua and this offense on the defensive side of the ball. Really not too many changes this offseason, and last week we saw just how well that worked out for him. With everybody returning to this defense for the most part, they have that connection, they have that chemistry already there, and they're going to continue on into week 2, being a very dominant defense, making it very hard for Josh Allen to be successful.
All right, so for this game, I have the Buffalo Bills coming out on top. I think that they are the more well-rounded team. I think that they're going to be able to stop what the Miami Dolphins do on the offensive side of the ball. On defense, I believe that the Miami Dolphins are going to have their hands full with Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. This wide receiving core is going to be all over the place. I think that at the end of the day, the Miami Dolphins just played a very close game against Mac Jones in his first NFL start. Josh Allen is now at the helm, and I think that presents a different set of problems. I look for the Buffalo Bills to come out on top. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Chicago Bears. The Cincinnati Bengals came off of what was an improbable win against the Minnesota Vikings in overtime, with mere seconds left, kicking a field goal to take the win away from the Minnesota Vikings. They did everything in their power, both on offense and defense, to get the job done. On offense, we saw Jamar Chase actually locate the ball for the first time in his pro career so far. We saw him really have that connection with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow looked great. Joe Mixon looked great. This offense really looked good. The only question I had was this offensive line. They seem to have held up pretty well. Let's see if they can do it against a stout Chicago defensive line. On the opposite side of the ball, Cincinnati, they did really well. Trey Hendrickson really showed up and showed out for this team. I like what they were able to present, and I believe at the end of the day, the Cincinnati Bengals have a legit shot at really competing with most of the NFL.
Hey, you had it right. The Chicago Bears have a stout defensive line, but that's pretty much where it ends. They don't have much else on this team. When you look back at last week against the Los Angeles Rams, David Montgomery had a fantastic game against that defensive line that includes Aaron Donald. David Montgomery is improving by the game. He is going to be the guy that anchors them down. He's going to have to be, as long as Andy Dalton is the quarterback. With Andy Dalton as the quarterback, Allen Robinson is not going to have the accurate balls. His route tree is going to be limited. Darnell Mooney is not going to be the explosive receiver we want him to be in year 2. This offense as a whole needs to improve. It's not going to until Justin Fields takes over. On the defensive side of the ball, besides this defensive line, like I mentioned, they don't have much. Without Kyle Fuller there, they seem to have taken a complete nosedive. They are unable to stop any of these receivers. When you look at the Rams, very similar to what the Bengals have to offer on offense. I just don't think they have the depth necessary to take care of all these receivers that the Bengals have to offer. It's going to be a very rough week, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bears, and it's going to continue to be rough until they replace Andy Dalton with Justin Fields. Now, with all that being said, I will be taking the Cincinnati Bengals to win this matchup. I believe they are just the stronger team, stronger on offense. The defense was a nice surprise as well. I think overall the Bengals are going to surprise a lot of people against the Chicago Bears in week 2.
Next up, we have the Denver Broncos versus the Jacksonville Jaguars being played in Jacksonville. And the Denver Broncos really come into this matchup off of a really nice win over the New York Giants. This was their first time as this brand new team really coming together and showing what they can do. They locked up the trio of wide receivers that the New York Giants have to really show that they can lock down any offense in the NFL. This defensive line was hungry and they got after people. Von Miller showed that he is back healthy and ready to go, and Bradley Chubb was right there with him. I think this defense is really going to lead the Broncos to some really great places. On the offensive side of the ball, Teddy Bridgewater did exactly what he needed to do. Not turn the ball over, really focus on precision passing, moving the ball, continuing to keep the ball with time of possession, and then also being able to really locate his receivers. Obviously, the loss of Jerry Jeudy with his high ankle sprain is going to be a key loss for this team moving forward, but they have the requisite depth to really focus on getting past that. With Tim Patrick taking over, I believe that he is going to join Courtland Sutton, Noah Fant as one of those top receiving targets. I like the Denver Broncos to really pick up where they left off last week.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, you saw what Jacksonville did against Houston, which is really nothing. And Trevor Lawrence has a lot to do. He really does. Throwing 3 interceptions, very bad throws in my opinion. Not really connecting with his top targets until really garbage time. I think that Trevor Lawrence has got to figure himself out before the rest of the team can figure themselves out. They need this offense to get going. The defense is star-studded on paper, but somehow cannot figure out how to stop receivers, running backs, anybody on the offensive side of the ball. It's unbelievable that Urban Meyer is coaching this team because I expect more from his guys. And it seems like there is a little bit of a headbutt going on in Jacksonville. The players don't like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is unable to get through to them. It's just a colossal mess right now. And with all of that going on, I just don't think they stand a chance against Denver this week, who has been proving that they are a much stronger team than they have been in the last few years.
Yeah, in this matchup, I think it's pretty easy. The Denver Broncos will most likely come out on top here. Their defense is going to swarm Trevor Lawrence, and this offensive line is not going to be able to do much about it. On the back end of the defense, you have really incredible players like Patrick Surtain II, Kyle Fuller, and Bryce Callahan. I believe that these guys are going to play integral parts to this defense, and this week they don't have top names that they're going to be going against, but it doesn't matter because they're going to lock down whoever's in front of them. At the end of the day, the Denver Broncos are just going to outclass and outwork the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are in a spot where they just need to kind of figure out who they are, figure out their identity, and figure out if they're going to even listen to their coach in Urban Meyer. Next up, we have the Houston Texans at the Cleveland Browns. The Houston Texans come into this matchup coming off of an extremely high victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Houston Texans, who really nobody expected to do anything this season, especially with the loss of Deshaun Watson, came out roaring, and they did not look back. With incredible outputs from Tyrod Taylor, and Mark Ingram, this offense was almost elite. I mean, they were absolutely incredible. In fact, you saw Mark Ingram rush 26 times for 85 yards and a touchdown. He really took this offense to a whole nother level, and he was able to win that backfield over players like David Johnson and Philip Lindsay. I really like what Mark Ingram was able to do here. I think that this offense is really willing to compete, and I think that they have a lot to prove. On the defensive side of the ball, not a lot of big names here, but they were able to come together and really work as a team defense. And at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for from your defense, because you don't have to have the star-studded names to really get the job done. As long as you buy into the culture, you buy into the scheme fits, and you can perform your specific job, you're going to be able to work in this league. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what the Houston Texans did against the Jaguars. I think they're going to look to do that against a much higher-powered Cleveland Browns team.
I don't care who's on the Houston Texans. They absolutely stand no chance in this matchup. It might as well be Bishop Sycamore versus IMG at Academy, because this is going to be an absolute blowout. The Cleveland Browns are not the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Houston Texans got lucky last week. You cannot take anything you saw from the game and say they're going to continue to do that every single week, especially against the Cleveland Browns, who almost beat the best team in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs. They were mere seconds away from getting that win over the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to do it for sure this week. Without a doubt in my mind, Baker Mayfield is ready to fix that mistake he made late in the fourth quarter. He's ready to get this offense going, get the passing attack going. Nick Chubb is still as monstrous as ever. On the defensive side of the ball, we all saw Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney hauling their asses to Patrick Mahomes. I expect that to be tenfold in this matchup to Tyrod Taylor. I think that this offensive line is a bunch of misfits, and they're going to get exposed again this week when they face this defensive line. Secondary is going to have no problem handling the wide receivers for the Texans. Overall, there is not a single matchup the Houston Texans are winning at any single position in this week's matchup. And as you all could probably guess, the Cleveland Browns will be easily taking this week's matchup against the Houston Texans.
Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams visiting the Indianapolis Colts. The Los Angeles Rams are coming off a very explosive win, as we saw Matthew Stafford really take this offense by the reins and show us exactly why the Rams made that massive trade to get Jared Goff out and bring Matthew Stafford in. With the high-powered offense behind Van Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods, we saw immense talent really spread throughout the field, and Matthew Stafford completed 20 of 26 passes for 321 yards, 3 touchdowns. This guy was absolutely cerebral, and he was able to pick apart an incredibly dynamic Bears defense. At the end of the day, Matthew Stafford is just on a different level, and he is showing people why he deserves to be in the conversation for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. On the ground, though, Darrell Henderson took this job, and he is not going to let it go. He ran 16 times for 70 yards and a touchdown. This guy is absolutely incredible. He's going to be able to run through his offensive line, especially with the amount of talent that they have up front. And I believe that he is going to lead this offense on the ground and really control the time of possession for this offense. On the defensive side of the ball, you have players like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. There's not much more to say about these guys that hasn't already been said. They are going to absolutely dominate in this matchup, and I expect that the Rams are going to be a top-tier team.
They are facing the Indianapolis Colts, who had a rough game last week against the Seattle Seahawks at home, but it was Carson Wentz's first game. There is some change going on here, and I expect it to be a little bumpy in the beginning. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts are going to make this one a lot more competitive. I think that Michael Pittman is going to be a bigger part of the offense. Zach Pascal is going to be a bigger part, and Jonathan Taylor is going to get going in this matchup. I think that we saw David Montgomery get a lot of yardage against Aaron Donald in that defensive line. Jonathan Taylor is a better running back than David Montgomery. I think that he could easily rush for over 120 yards in this game, and that could really help the passing attack as well. Mixing this up, getting all this going, Carson Wentz is ready to revitalize his career. I think it could happen against the Los Angeles Rams. On the defensive side of the ball, they're strong all around. DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye on the defensive line. You got Darius Leonard in the middle of the field. They are very strong up front in their front seven. I am very curious, though, to see how well this secondary can hold up to the plethora of wide receivers and tight ends that Matthew Stafford now has to throw to. That's the big question mark I want to see answered, but I think it's going to make for a good game.
Yeah, and listen, at the end of the day, I think the Los Angeles Rams have much bigger hopes than to defeat the Indianapolis Colts in a regular season matchup. I think that they're going to get through this game. They've already shown their offensive firepower and what they can do. Now they're looking to just run through some of these teams. That includes the Indianapolis Colts. I think they are completely different classes of teams right now. The Los Angeles Rams are Super Bowl contenders. The Colts are hoping for a playoff spot. At this point, I believe that the Rams are just going to outwork and outperform the Colts, and I think that they're going to take this matchup pretty easily. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers in what should be a very, very anticipated matchup. The Raiders coming off of that thrilling victory against the Baltimore Ravens, in which they were so close to scoring in overtime, and then a penalty takes them away from the goal line. They throw an interception. The Ravens get the ball back. Then Lamar Jackson turns it over, and the Raiders capitalize on a zero blitz from the Baltimore Ravens. Zay Jones comes over on a crosser by himself and is able to burn the defense. This was an absolutely incredible and exciting matchup to watch. I'm so excited to watch more Raiders football. And right now, I think that Derek Carr has shown us that he can really figure out how to lead this offense. Derek Carr threw 56 passes, and of those completed 34 for 435 yards and 2 touchdowns. This guy was absolutely phenomenal. He showed that he has really taken a liking to John Gruden's system and him working with John Gruden. I believe that this is an opportunity for him to really take this offense in this league by storm. And when you have a guy like Darren Waller to throw to, it's pretty easy. Darren Waller was targeted 19 times, and of those had 10 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. This guy is one of the most dominant tight ends that we have in the NFL right now, and he is not going to let us forget it. On the defensive side of the ball, this pass rush looked elite. They looked absolutely phenomenal. And when you take a look at the pass rushers that they were able to acquire, especially the players in the second level on the outside, you have players like Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby who are going to absolutely dominate opposing offensive lines. These guys work in tandem together on the same side of the ball, and they are going to fly at opposing quarterbacks. Right now, I'm really excited to see what the Raiders can do, and I believe that they have what it takes to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
For the home team, though, we do have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is really where we get a solid matchup on the offensive side of the ball. I think that the offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, very high level versus a very high level Las Vegas Raiders. This is going to be a very, very fun matchup to watch. When you look at how they did last week, though, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju, they didn't perform up to expectations. I think this is going to be a rebound week. I think that they are just getting accustomed to each other. Once again, the offensive line has been reshuffled a little bit, and I think things are just going to find themselves right back to where they were last year this week. I think it's going to turn itself around. On the defensive side of the ball, we've got a very strong front seven. TJ Watt is back and as explosive as ever. In the secondary, Minka's there, Joe Hayden's there, but the corners really do scare me. Luckily, though, the wide receivers for the Las Vegas Raiders are minimal. They barely use them, as Darren Waller is really the only option that Derek Carr sees. As long as they can find a way to stop Darren Waller, they can take this win. And I think that they do. I think that Darren Waller gets minimized. I think that his production takes a nosedive as he's going to get double, triple covered. Derek Carr's going to be forced to run with Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards. And I think that he's just not accustomed to that. It's going to take some time to get used to. And it's going to be a little too much for him to do on the fly in this matchup against a very stout front seven from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will be taking the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this matchup in week 2.
Next up, we have the New England Patriots visiting the New York Jets in what should be a really fun and exciting matchup between two rookie quarterbacks. New England Patriots starting Mac Jones, obviously not the result that they wanted last week when Damian Harris fumbled in the red zone going for a game-winning score, but at the end of the day, the New England Patriots are one of those teams that you can expect to bounce back in a big way with Bill Belichick still coaching this team, Mac Jones and his 24-hour rule of forgetting things, I believe at the end of the day, the New England Patriots are going to be ready for the New York Jets. Mac Jones showed that he is up to the challenge and he is one of the better rookie quarterbacks out of this class so far. And he has shown a mastery of the offensive playbook that Josh McDaniels has given him. So I really like what he can do in this offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, the New England Patriots made a lot of acquisitions this offseason. Every single position on the defensive side of the ball was revamped from last year, whether it was players coming back from opting out, free agency, the draft, it doesn't matter. All of these guys showed up in week 1 and they are looking to put even more together in week 2 against the New York Jets, a division rival that they have to win against. The New England Patriots are looking to make a statement in this game, and I think they're going to be able to do just that.
And for the New York Jets, there really isn't too much to say. They're an absolute dumpster fire, and things got worse after they lost Mekhi Becton, who is out with a dislocated kneecap. He will be out for a very long time. And after he exited that game against the Carolina Panthers, you saw the pass rush flourish for the Carolina Panthers, getting to Zach Wilson 6 times. That is going to be the case this week again. I think that this pass rush for the Patriots is going to be a little bit too strong for the offensive line of the Jets. Zach Wilson's going to be under duress once again. His weapons are going to they're going to have to try their best to get open as soon as possible, because otherwise Zach Wilson's going to stand no chance. On the defensive side of the ball, they continue to lose players. Jamie and Sherwood will be out for this game. Their outside linebacker, leaving only a few key players left on this team to actually work with. Robert Salah can do his best to get them up to speed, but I just don't think it's any match for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty lopsided matchup. And when you talk about the pass rush of the Patriots against an already injured offensive line for the New York Jets, then, there's really not much more to say. I think Zach Wilson getting sacked 6 times last week to the Carolina Panthers is only a precursor to what the New England Patriots have in store for them. The New England Patriots will come out on top of this one pretty easily. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints visiting the Carolina Panthers. The New Orleans Saints surprised a lot of people last week when Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdowns and really did a remarkable job of not throwing a single interception. Something that he's actually known for is throwing interceptions. So really kudos to him, and kudos to Sean Payton, who's been able to coach this guy over the last year and a half to really focus on controlling the ball, really making smarter decisions and not forcing the ball into tight coverage when he doesn't have to. This offense looked really good under Jameis Winston, and I'm excited to see what they can do. The biggest issue is that we need to see Alvin Kamara really show up and have an Alvin Kamara type day, because when you take a look at the Carolina Panthers, they have a lot of depth on the defensive side of the ball, and they are going to present different problems for the New Orleans Saints. On the defensive side of the ball for the Saints, though, they looked really good. This team with Cameron Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore really showed that they are going to be able to focus on working their pass rushes, really lock down coverage, and now they get to add Bradley Roby to the mix, who they acquired from the Houston Texans in that trade. Bradley Roby suspended for the first week, so we didn't get to see him there, but it doesn't matter. He's going to be opposite Marshawn Lattimore, and this defense got that much better. I'm really excited to see what the Saints can do, and so should you and Sean Payton.
In week 1, the Carolina Panthers looked very solid against the New York Jets, but you really got to take that with a grain of salt. I think Sam Darnold, though, is the real deal. I think this is going to be a breakout year for Sam Darnold. He's going to prove to be a top 10 quarterback in the league, and he has so far done just that. With Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore as his weapons, Christian McCaffrey in the backfields, they're really shining all together. This offense looks really good, and on the defensive side of the ball, they're very strong as well. I think the addition of J.C. Horn in the draft has really added a level of depth to the secondary they were missing the last few years. I think this is going to play very well against the New Orleans Saints. When you look at the New Orleans Saints weapons, they're lacking a lot of big names, a lot of guys that'll intimidate you on the defensive side of the ball, and I think this is just going to give extra confidence to the Carolina Panthers. This is a divisional matchup. These are always played a lot closer than we expect them to be, and I think in this matchup, I'm taking the upset. I think the Carolina Panthers have the right recipe to get past the New Orleans Saints, to figure them out. I think that the Carolina Panthers get a very big win over the New Orleans Saints in week 2.
Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. The San Francisco 49ers lost Raheem Mostert for the season, and now they have to replace him. It looks like Eli Mitchell will be that guy. Trey Sermon was a healthy scratch, so a lot of people are scratching their heads as to why that was. But nonetheless, you take a look at the other running backs that they have at their disposal, and it just seems like Eli Mitchell is going to win this job as the primary back. On top of that, Jimmy Garoppolo looked really good. I think he needs to target Brandon Ayuk a little bit more, but we learned after the game that Ayuk was dealing with a shoulder injury, so not sure how he's going to fare in this matchup. Either way, Debo Samuel was able to carry the load for this offense. Trent Sherfield really stepped up and really figured out how he could help this offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, Nick Bosa was able to show up. This defense really got stronger, and they lost a key piece in cornerback Jason Verrett, but they were able to replace him with Dre Kirkpatrick as a free agent signing this week. I believe that he's going to be able to step up and help out this defense. I don't know if it'll be at the same level as Jason Verrett was supposed to be, but nonetheless, this defense is very strong, and they're going to rely on their coaching to get it done.
The Philadelphia Eagles had a great week one. Nick Sirianni looked great in his first game as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is going to be a much tighter matchup, much more competitive matchup, and I think this is going to test the offense and defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts looked really good, throwing to Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor. Kenny Gainwell and Miles Sanders out of the backfield, very big weapons. I think that those two are going to be a lot more involved in the offense than they were in week one as time progresses. And on the defensive side of the ball, this is where they make their money. Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox on the defensive line continue to hold down this defense, getting pressure on the quarterback very quickly in the secondary. Darius Slay looks just as advertised in his days from Detroit. The addition of Anthony Harris has already paid dividends. I think they are going to continue this against Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers, and they're going to really make them compete for the win in this week two matchup.
Yeah, and when it's all said and done, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are still trying to figure out who they are on both sides of the ball. I think the San Francisco 49ers are a stronger team than the Eagles are at this point in time. Jimmy Garoppolo is a seasoned veteran under center, and Nick, I understand that you don't like him, but, 49ers fans tend to. So I believe at the end of the day, the San Francisco 49ers will come out on top in this matchup. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which should be the most lopsided matchup of the week. The Atlanta Falcons come in off of a brutal loss, and they are still reeling. Kyle Pitts did not look like the guy that they drafted. Mike Davis wasn't able to run the ball at all. Matt Ryan was absolutely abysmal. And at the end of the day, this team just did not look like they were an NFL caliber team. And they're going up against the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, good luck to them. Honestly, there's not much more to say than good luck, and I hope for the best, because that they need a song and a prayer to just get out of this game, let alone have a chance of even winning.
Yeah, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what is there to really say besides they are the best team in the NFL and they're facing the worst team in the NFL? They just so happen to be in the same division. I think that it doesn't matter if they're divisional opponents. This is not going to be close. Tom Brady's going to have his way with the secondary. The pass rush is not going to get there for the Falcons. The offensive line for the Buccaneers is just too strong. Weapons for Tom Brady are too good. Defensive side of the ball, pressure all day long. They're going to be getting to Matt Ryan almost every single play. He's going to have to get that ball out in 2 seconds flat. Otherwise, he'll be flat on the ground. This is going to be an absolute nightmare of a game to watch unless you are a Tampa Bay fan. I think if you believe in the Atlanta Falcons, you need to go get your head checked because you're not thinking straight. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the clear and easy favorite to take in this one. They are going to have an easy victory in week 2.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know what I see from that game as I'll be there live. So I'll be able to report back and just tell you how lopsided this game really was. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Minnesota Vikings are coming off of that very tough loss to the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime. The Vikings really should have come out of this with a nice victory, but this offense did not perform up to task. Adam Thielen did a great job, but Justin Jefferson left a lot on that football field. The tight end position was not able to produce now that they lost Irv Smith Jr. And Dalvin Cook, I mean, where was this guy? He did not show up at all. This offensive line struggled all day, and it's not going to get easier for them as they have Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. At the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings on defense. I expected them to be much better, and they got torched by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So I don't know if they got better, if they still need to work on some things, but right now I'm not a believer in this defense, or at least as much as I thought I was. Right now, the Minnesota Vikings have a lot to prove. I need to see more before I can be all aboard their hype train.
For the Arizona Cardinals, this matchup is pretty much as lopsided as it is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Arizona Cardinals are just going to have their way with the Minnesota Vikings defense. The Arizona Cardinals offense, run by Kyler Murray, looked absolutely stellar in week one against a very intimidating Tennessee Titans team. I think that this is an easier matchup for them, and I think Kyler Murray is going to continue on this MVP run, throwing to DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green getting involved in this offense, and you got Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore as weapons as well. Absolutely star-studded at the receiver position. On the defensive side of the ball, not much more to say besides Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. Chandler Jones getting 5 sacks against one of the best left tackles in the league last week, and then J.J. Watt getting key stops against Derrick Henry on the goal line. This is going to be absolutely terrifying for every Dalvin Cook owner, myself included, this week in fantasy football. This is one everybody's got to brace for. Arizona Cardinals are here to stay. They are legit. They're going to absolutely trounce the Minnesota Vikings in week 2.
The Arizona Cardinals are by far and away the more superior team in this one, and I believe the Cardinals are going to absolutely come out on top. They're going to dominate this game, and it's not going to even be close. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Dallas Cowboys coming off of a very tough loss on Thursday night in the NFL opener against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the night that they unveiled their banner. You know, it's a highly emotion game. It's one of those games that you have to really prepare for, and if you haven't been a part of it, it's really tough to understand what it's going to be like. Now they can get to what they do best, and at the end of the day, I need to see more from Ezekiel Elliott. Ziggy was not used. He was a decoy at best last week, and he needs to show up, and this offense needs to be run through him. Dak Prescott looked fantastic. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. Now, without Michael Gallup, this offense is probably going to take a little bit of a hit. Not too much, but I think Zeke needs to be in this game a lot more. On the defensive side of the ball, the loss of DeMarcus Lawrence is devastating for this defense. He was by far and away the best pass rusher and the best all-around defensive lineman that they had to offer. With his broken foot, I think this defense is truly going to struggle, and I'm really not sure what we should expect to see from the Dallas Cowboys defense.
For the Los Angeles Chargers, they got tested in week 1 against the Washington football defense, and they came out on top. They're now going to face the Dallas Cowboys defense that just got a lot weaker with the loss of DeMarcus Lawrence. I think Justin Herbert's going to have more time in the pocket to work. He's going to be more confident now that he doesn't have to worry about DeMarcus Lawrence. Keenan Allen is going to be a big target this week, as well as Mike Williams. I think Justin Herbert is ready to capitalize on this Dallas Cowboys defense, and he's going to make a big game of it. For the Los Angeles Chargers defense, we've already seen the improvements because of Brandon Staley being their new head coach. This defense was rock solid against some pretty big weapons that Washington has to offer. Terry McLaurin being a pretty much no-show for them last week, forcing Antonio Gibson to fumble the ball late in the game. The Chargers defense is getting stronger. I think that Brandon Staley's going to continue to make them stronger over time, and this is just going to be a very tough matchup for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, with that said, I just think the Dallas Cowboys offense is a little too strong. We saw this last year with Dallas. Their defense would give up every single drive, but Dallas's offense would come back and just score again. They did not have any quit in them. Their offense continues to win them games. I think that this week we're going to see Dak Prescott go off once more, and this is going to be a very high-scoring game, but I think that Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys edge this one out in Los Angeles.
Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans visiting the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans did not show up in week 1, plain and simple. Derrick Henry was a no-show. Julio Jones was a no-show, except for causing his team penalties. On top of the fact that Mike Vrabel lit a fire under this team's ass, that this team has to really show up and show out. A.J. Brown didn't show up. This offensive line got torched. Taylor Lewan let up 5 sacks to Chandler Jones. I mean, granted, it's Chandler Jones, but 5 sacks? You're supposed to be one of the best left tackles in the league. What's happening? And he went to Twitter after the game and talked about how he thanked Chandler Jones for that what he called ass whooping, because it is going to help him improve. I need to see some improvement. This Tennessee Titans team is way too talented, way too strong to be held down to the standards that they were last week. I really need to see a lot more from them. On the defensive side of the ball, it played out exactly what as I thought. This defense is not strong at all. The back end of this defense is going to be their Achilles heel all season long. Any offense with any competent quarterback and wide receivers is going to be able to torch this defense, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The Tennessee Titans have a lot to fix on both sides of the football.
For the Seattle Seahawks, they had a very strong week 1 matchup. I thought that the Seattle Seahawks were going to be a weak team this year. I thought they were going to fall off a little bit. They did the complete opposite. They got stronger. With everybody finally being healthy, Tyler Lockett being a big weapon, DK Metcalf coming back in the second half of that game against the Colts, Chris Carson is fully ingrained into this offense once again. I think that this offense is one of the stronger offenses, even if they don't have star-studded names all across the field. They are improving, and they are as scary as ever with Russell Wilson at the helm. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where I was worried. I thought that their secondary, it was getting worse by the day after they kept trading away cornerback after cornerback, but they continued to hold their own against the Indianapolis Colts, who do have some receivers. So I have to give the Seahawks defense some credit. I think that this is going to be a strong part. Jamal Adams is going to continue to be a big weapon on the line of scrimmage, getting to the quarterback. Bobby Wagner in the middle of the field, he is the best middle linebacker, so you always have to watch out for him and how he commands that defense. I think that the Seattle Seahawks are as good as ever. Pete Carroll is doing a great job, and they're going to continue their success this week as they face the Tennessee Titans, who are reeling from that terrible loss. I think that the Tennessee Titans continue to fall in this one, and the Seattle Seahawks continue to impress. The Seattle Seahawks get a big win over Tennessee in week 2.
Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Baltimore Ravens in what should be a very highly anticipated Sunday night football matchup. Taking a look at this game, we're seeing the Kansas City Chiefs, who were just in the Super Bowl for the last 2 seasons, and they were taken to the ropes by the Cleveland Browns, albeit a Cleveland Browns team that has been vastly improved, but nonetheless, the Cleveland Browns. The Kansas City Chiefs have a lot to prove here. Without Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman has to step up, and we haven't seen that yet. It was the Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill show once again. They need more players to step up. I'm looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm looking at some of the other weapons that they have on this offense to really get the job done. On the defensive side of the ball, we have to take a look at the back end of this defense, and Tyrann Mathieu really showed up last year, but he was almost a no-show in week 1. I didn't see a whole hell of a lot from this defense, and I think that against Baltimore, which is a better offense than Cleveland has, they are going to struggle mightily. At the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs have to focus on getting the other players on par with the rest of this team, because at the end of the day, this Achilles heel could cost them multiple games throughout the season.
And for the Baltimore Ravens, they just didn't look good in week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, the Raiders are a good team, but I expect a lot more out of Lamar Jackson and this offense. They cannot get stymied as much as they did. Lamar cannot be coughing up the football 3 times a game. You're going to lose every single time if you continue to do that. They've got to figure it out. Lamar's still got to improve as a thrower. I did not see any improvement in week 1. I think that there's so much to work out. I don't think they can do it, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs. There's too much working against the Baltimore Ravens. I think that they have some great guys on both sides of the ball, but they're just not going to figure that out in week 2 when they're facing the reigning AFC champions.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one hell of a matchup, a Sunday night matchup at that. And the Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens, these two teams just don't like each other. They play a lot of high-octane games that mean a lot in the season and in the postseason. And at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs are just too strong for the Baltimore Ravens. With the loss of Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters, this Baltimore Ravens team is still dealing with all the losses they continue to suffer. And the Kansas City Chiefs are going to continue to roll as the high-powered offensive team that they are. I think the Kansas City Chiefs win this game pretty easily. Finally, we have our Monday Night Football matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. The Detroit Lions looked pretty decent in their home opener, as they showed that Jared Goff has a real understanding of this offense. You saw DeAndre Swift really take the bull by the horns and show what he can do as a lead back in this offense. And Dan Campbell has his team right. The problem is there's not a lot of talent on this team. I think that they showed a lot of great work ethic. I saw a lot of really good things on the film. At the end of the day, I just don't think they're a very good football team. I don't think they're a very talented football team, and that's going to cost them a lot throughout the season.
The Green Bay Packers looked abysmal in week one, but I take week one with a grain of salt. This was a very strange week one, especially for the Green Bay Packers. This is something we will not see repeated by Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, or Aaron Jones. They're all going to get it clicking in week two. They're going to figure it out, especially against a divisional opponent and arguably the weakest team in the NFL. This is going to be a very good bounce back week for Green Bay, and they get to do it on national television. I think that Aaron Rodgers is coming with a vengeance. I think he's ready to prove a lot of doubters wrong. He is the reigning MVP. We got to remember that. This defense brought them to the NFC Championship game last year. They are all back together once again. I think that this team just had one weird week, and they're ready to come back and prove everybody wrong. They are still here. They are here to stay. They are one of the teams to beat in the NFC. And they're going to continue to show that against Detroit.
All right, well, that's what we have for all of our week 2 matchups. Let us know in the comments down below which teams you have winning and losing for each matchup, or your favorite teams. Let us know if we had them winning. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.